Wow. Well, I'm honored and humbled being here today at such critical times. I assumed the leadership of the Global Investigative Journalism Network 2 months ago at the Global Investigative Journalism Network. When ARIJ invited me, they asked me, could you talk about the future of investigative journalism at a global scale? And a lot has happened since then. And to talk and to think about the future, we need to recognize the present. And we can start looking at what is going on now at the moment. The war situation, of course, naturally now in Israel and Gaza, Ukraine, Yemen, Syria, conflicts around the world, right? But at the same time, we have also journalists killed, not only because of war and conflict. Right before coming, I heard about journalists being shot in Mexico too. Organized crime is also attacking our journalists around the world. Also, we have repressive regimes. We have repressive governments attacking our journalists. We have digital threats. We have other threats, not only to our lives, but to our sources and to the work we do as investigative journalists. In this very complex time and hard time, when we have journalists killed, journalists under threat, and journalists surveilled, there is also a light of hope. And that light of hope comes through collaborations and investigative journalists. That light of hope comes through the power of networks. But when we have all this, we also have an increasing number of investigative journalists in exile. We have disinformation not only being used against our citizens, but disinformation being used to discredit the work of investigative journalists. But that leads to a more opaque world. That leads to a world where our citizens need investigative journalism more than ever. At the same time, in this reality where we have all these complex threats and these hard moments, and the context of war and organized crime and repressive regimes, we also have a more complex society with large numbers of records of data, data that crosses borders. And sometimes we have countries with a lot of opacity where there is nothing that we can find, and we find that data in other countries. And that brings and opens doors for us to be able to investigate, to mine the records, to mine the data, and then use technology that is also posing a threat as an opportunity for investigative journalism. Here at ARIJ, we also have some workshops on artificial intelligence. That also represents challenges and opportunities. Artificial intelligence could also help spread disinformation, but could be a very powerful tool to mine and explore and find hidden connections in large number of records. In this context that we have now, yes, we have more complex and sophisticated schemes used by governments, multinationals, organized crime that threat our citizens around the world. We have abuses of power, we have money laundering all around, we have inequality, and these abuses of power is also including human rights abuses. We have victims. We're talking about victims of war, like deaths, but also sexual harassment, sexual abuse. We also have victims of inequality, poverty, as a consequence of corruption. And in that context, where you have so many powers in between, a lot of money behind war and conflict, companies sponsoring and supporting war, companies actually enabling human rights abuses in countries with repressive regimes, but also covering all this across all regions. We have also more nonprofits investigative journalism centers. The Global Investigative Journalism Network, of which ARIJ is a member, we have more than 244 nonprofit investigative journalism organizations in 90 countries. Many of them emerged as a result of the local context too, of saying, we can do something about it, we can investigate. If traditional media is closing, if we're being censored, journalists are finding more opportunities to continue doing the work, to inform our citizens, to expose wrongdoing, to do the watchdog journalism that our community needs. And in that context, where are we going, right? What is the future? So we are seeing already a bit part of it. Yes, we're talking about the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, Forbidden Stories at a global scale, then at a regional level, ARIJ, but also, for instance, in Latin America, Connect Us, CLIP, and other networks across various regions. But then we have all the member organizations and all the nonprofit centers that are emerging and the initiatives of journalists that are empowered to do the investigations that we need. So we are a community, and the future is in the community. The future is already part of the present. So we will continue building our future by staying stronger, by doing more cross-border collaborations, but not only doing collaborations for stories. We need to find other ways of collaborating in terms of sharing resources, tools, techniques, data, so that we can advance our craft, so that we can continue holding the powerful to account. So those resources, in terms of human resources, capacity building, sharing knowledge, come out of the power of networks. And we at GIGN are honored and proud to have so many networks and so many member organizations doing important work at a local, regional, and global level. Because collaborations are at all those levels. For us, it's about finding solutions together. Also, when we're talking about investigative journalism, it's not only about having the will and wanting to do investigative journalism. Things are getting hard. Things are getting complex around the world. So to do so, we need the right tools. We need the right training. And that's where we are there for each other. That's where networks will help us continue building that capacity and empower ourselves as a community so we can continue building the future of our craft together. At the moment, for instance, though we didn't expect it, we did a guide on how to report and investigate war crimes. That was in the context of the Ukraine war. Now, with the situation in Gaza, is more relevant than ever, unfortunately. And these resources are there for our community. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear from everyone in our community so we actually advance with the best of the traditional investigative reporting techniques, fact-checking, validation, human sources, but at the same time use the power of technology and resources about data, AI, so together bring the traditional with the opportunities and innovation so we can do the best investigative journalism we can at the service of our community, reduce the risks, and be ready for these complex challenges that future is bringing to us. This is the moment, and the future is the power of the networks. Thank you.
شكراً.